2D platformers. I love them, you love them, we all love them together. That's why I forced my partner Nick to make one in just 7 days. So, without wasting any time, I set up a new Godot project, and then my first job was to set up the player. So I knew going into it when making the player that I wanted to use a state machine driven approach, because the player would obviously have a lot of different actions that they can kind of transfer between. So jumping, idle, running, sprinting, all of those sort of stuff can get messy if we're having it all in one script. So I wanted to segment that as much as possible to help prevent bugs. So of course that took me a few iterations to get set up and sorted, but once I did get something, it was something that I thought would have been easier to build upon, easy to implement new features with if need be and stuff like that. So I was quite happy with that approach that I went with. So during me doing all of that sort of programming setup stuff, Nick, on the other hand, was setting up the prototype player block out animation stuff for us to be able to start getting in and iterate with and sort of build that in.
So with the sprite, I didn't really know what to do other than cat. So I took a previous D&D character from a previous campaign and I turned it into a 32 by 32 sprite. The main feature of the character is that it has only 2 legs. Now when animating a biped walk, typically you have the arms for the center of balance, so that was a very interesting way of trying to animate a biped walk. So I made the advanced statistical choice to make him waddle because funny. And with the idle, run and sprint, roughly animated with silhouettes and just 2 eye orbs, I sent that over to Isaac.
So once I got the animations, I then reworked my state machine and all of the states to be able to, when you enter them, play a animation. And that approach allowed it to not rely on a animation tree, which I personally have not properly experimented with. So in terms of this project and getting it done in 7 days was a huge bonus for us. I then got to work on a placeholder obstacle, which just had a simple placeholder sprite. And when the player ran into it, it would just respawn them at the start of the level. It wouldn't restart the level because I envisioned a continuous timer going up at the top. So if you failed, you run dead, essentially, which is harsh, but I kind of want it to be on that slightly rage baitier side. Which, speaking of that sort of level timer, I then got that implemented, which just counts up, and then when you finally hit the goal, it then brings up a little pop-up saying the amount of time and the amount of attempts that you took on that level as well.
So then I was tasked to make temporary tile sheets for the level, and with that I just used simple black and white shapes. Nothing too complicated, it was just there for temporary things, just so Isaac could do things in the engine while I was working on the tuna can. And it was just like a case of, right, what's Sniffy there for? So, cats like tuna, so I thought, tuna can. So I just animated it with a simple spin, nothing too complicated. We just had 7 days.
So when Nick sent me the prototype kind of tile sheet for the levels and stuff, I started to build them out just one by one to kind of get a feel about how I properly see the game to be and how that's going to play, and just to give a better idea of what levels we could have in the future and to iterate on and stuff like that.
So after that was done and Isaac used the temporary tile sheet to make the first couple of levels, it was a case of actually making the final tile sheet pieces. Now usually I concept for things like this, but I didn't quite have the time, so I decided to initially improvise. And at the time there was some construction being made outside of my home where they were like digging into the road, and I actually got to see all the layers that actually made up a pavement. With that I thought, that looks actually quite cool, so for the tile sheets I just initially took that. On the original there were more layers, but I just simplified it to 2. The like concrete level and like the gravelly underground. I started in grayscale because I cannot colour for the life of me, and my trick around it is to take the grayscale and then colour balance it so it lets me add colour without me having to worry about it being a harmonious colour scheme. So yeah, once they were done, I just sent them off to Isaac and we're good.
So after a good little bit of time building upon, iterating, scrapping, reworking, basically doing everything under the sun to create 10 nice feeling levels, we finally landed on something that we're quite happy with and felt progressed nicely while started to get a little bit challenging. We then had a couple things left to do in the final 2 days. And those few things were to get the sound in, the main menu, the UI, and the itch.io page all set up, which was stressful to say the least. Once we'd got those assets in and sorted and kind of put in the right places for the UI, the main menu and all that sort of stuff, I then found a few very simple sound effects which I just quickly threw in, got a bit of music, quickly threw that in. Pretty much the game then was done. All that was left to do was just set up the itch.io page, which luckily Nick was already working on a lot of the assets and had set up the bulk of the design. We got that all set up and we were done. Or so we thought. You see, I work in a college and I ended up showing the game to my students. And just before their awards evening, they spent about a solid 4 hours speedrunning the game non-stop, which was incredible to see people enjoying. There was real competition going on. But after talking with my students, it was evident what the general consensus was. They want a full version of Sniffy Wants Tuna. If the full version of the game looks interesting to you, links are in the description for it. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe, give comments. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to join our community, we now have an official Discord server. And if you want to get a few rewards, partake in some polls around the games that we're doing, and generally just help us give more content and games like these and bigger and better, then please do check out our Patreon. It would be much, much, much appreciated. But yeah, that is everything for this video, and I'll see you in a bit.